Take away your phone, your coat, your matches, your medicine, your map, and every piece of packaged food you own. Now place yourself in an Ice Age valley as the sun begins to disappear. The temperature is falling. Snow covers the familiar shapes of the landscape. Somewhere beyond the trees, a large predator is searching for food. You have a sharp stone, a wooden branch, and several hours before darkness. Most modern people would not know what to do first. Should you search for water, build a shelter, make a weapon, collect firewood, or keep moving? Every decision consumes time and energy, and one mistake could prevent you from seeing the sunrise. But a Neanderthal child growing up in this world may already understand things you do not. The child may recognize which direction the wind is changing, where animals recently crossed the valley, which wood will burn, which stone can hold a sharp edge, and why one sheltered slope is safer than another. Neanderthals had no writing, metal, agriculture, or modern science. Yet they survived across Ice Age Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. So how did people once dismissed as primitive continue living in environments that could kill an unprepared modern human in a single night? And if you were forced to live beside them using only the technology they possessed, who would really be the helpless one? The answer begins with an important distinction. Neanderthals were not necessarily more intelligent than modern humans, and modern humans were not simply upgraded Neanderthals. The two groups developed different bodies, cultures, skills, and survival strategies. A person living today benefits from an enormous network of accumulated knowledge. We do not need to understand electrical engineering to use a light. We do not need to know how to sew animal hides to stay warm. We do not need to recognize every dangerous plant because someone else grows, tests, packages, and transports our food. Modern intelligence is supported by millions of specialists and machines. Remove that system, and possessing general knowledge about science does not automatically teach someone how to survive. A Neanderthal did not have our technological network. Each small group needed enough practical knowledge to find food, maintain tools, manage fire, raise children, avoid predators, remember the landscape, and respond when someone became injured. Their first advantage was their body. Neanderthals were generally compact and powerfully built, with relatively short, lower arms and legs, large joints, and broad torsos. A compact body loses heat more slowly than a tall body with long limbs. Their large chests and strong muscles may also have supported the demanding lifestyle of people who traveled through difficult terrain while carrying tools, fuel, food, and children. But these advantages came with a cost. A powerful body needs energy. Neanderthals could not simply remain inside a cave and wait for better weather. They needed large and reliable sources of calories. Every day presented a difficult equation. The group had to obtain more energy than it spent searching for food. Finding the wrong animals, traveling too far, or returning with too little could slowly destroy the group. This meant that survival depended on observation long before a spear was thrown. Imagine tracks appearing in fresh snow. A modern visitor sees a line of footprints. An experienced hunter sees the animal's size, direction, speed, and perhaps whether it is injured. The depth of the prints reveals how much weight the animal placed on each foot. Broken branches show its height. Droppings indicate how recently it passed. Birds may reveal where scavengers have gathered. Wind direction determines whether the animal will smell the hunters approaching. None of this knowledge exists inside the spear. It exists inside the minds of the people carrying it. Neanderthals hunted deer, horses, bison, and other large animals. Evidence from approximately 120,000-year-old deer remains at Newmark Nord has been interpreted as showing the close-range use of thrusting spears. Getting close enough to drive a wooden weapon into a large animal would have been extremely dangerous. But this was not necessarily a desperate attack by a screaming individual. A successful close-range hunt could require several people to predict the animal's movement, approach without being detected, use the landscape to restrict its escape, and strike during a brief opportunity. One hunter might frighten the animal toward another. Others could wait near a narrow passage. The strongest person was useless if the rest of the group moved too early. Their weapons looked simple, but the plan behind them was not. We should also be careful not to imagine every Neanderthal hunt in exactly the same way. Their methods likely changed according to the animal, landscape, season, available materials, and knowledge of each group. Wooden weapons are rarely preserved, so archaeology provides only fragments of the complete system. What remains is enough to show deliberate hunting, but not enough to reconstruct every movement. Even after the animal was killed, the difficult work continued. The carcass had to be opened, divided, protected from scavengers, and transported. Meat could feed the group. Fat supplied valuable energy. Hides became coverings. Sinew could be used for binding, and bones might serve as tools or fuel. Knowing how to use an animal efficiently was a form of survival intelligence. A dead animal was not automatically food. Without sharp tools, processing knowledge, cooperation, and enough time, it was simply an enormous object attracting predators. Stone tools were therefore essential, but a piece of stone was only as useful as the person shaping it. Toolmaking required selecting the correct material and understanding how stone fractures. Strike at the wrong angle and the stone breaks uselessly. Strike with the correct force and a sharp flake separates. Producing a planned shape requires several steps performed in the correct sequence. The toolmaker must imagine an object that does not yet exist inside the stone. A beginner copying the final strike would fail because the earlier surfaces had not been prepared. This knowledge was probably learned through repeated observation and practice. Children watched adults. Adults corrected mistakes. Experienced makers remembered which locations produced reliable stone. When groups moved, they carried not only tools but information about where replacement material could be found. A damaged tool did not always need to be abandoned. Its edge could be sharpened again, its shape changed, or the remaining material used for another purpose. The modern visitor may recognize a stone tool after seeing it in a museum, but recognizing one is completely different from producing a useful one while cold, hungry, and far from shelter. Fire created another major difference between knowing that something is possible and knowing how to perform it. A modern person understands what fire is, but many people cannot create one without a lighter. Even after a flame appears, keeping it alive requires dry fuel, airflow, protection from rain, and constant attention. Too little air suffocates it. Too much wind scatters sparks. Wet branches create smoke but little heat. Large pieces of wood may not ignite before the smaller fuel disappears. Fire provided warmth, light, protection, and a place to process food, but it also required labor. Someone had to collect fuel while others hunted or gathered. Someone had to protect embers during movement. A group that allowed its final flame to die during wet or freezing conditions could face a serious crisis. Neanderthals did more than remain near the mouths of caves. At Bruniquel Cave in what is now France, researchers found large arrangements made from broken stalagmites approximately 336 meters from the entrance. Dating placed these constructions at roughly 176,500 years ago. Several areas show evidence of heating or fire. Reaching that location required entering complete darkness, carrying or maintaining light, remembering the path, and organizing the movement of heavy pieces of stone. The structures were not created by water or accidental collapse. Humans deliberately broke, transported, and arranged the stalagmites. We still do not know exactly why. They may have served a practical, social, or symbolic purpose, but the evidence does not provide a final answer. The uncertainty makes the discovery more remarkable. Neanderthals were exploring and modifying an underground environment long before any known city, monument, or written instruction. Their ability to survive also depended on something less visible than tools or muscles. They supported one another. Shanidar I, an older Neanderthal discovered in Shanidar Cave, lived with a remarkable collection of physical limitations. He had lost much of his right arm, experienced serious damage around one eye, walked abnormally because of injuries and degeneration, and probably suffered significant hearing loss. Any one of these conditions could make hunting, traveling, communicating, and detecting predators more difficult. Together, they created a serious survival problem. Yet he did not die immediately after receiving his injuries. His continued survival strongly suggests that he existed within a supportive social group. Others may have shared food, adjusted their movements, protected him from danger, or allowed him to perform tasks compatible with his remaining abilities. Archaeology cannot show us a specific person handing him food or supporting him across a river, so we should not turn inference into a witness scene. But survival with multiple disabilities in a dangerous environment is difficult to explain as complete independence. This reveals an advantage that is easy to overlook. Neanderthal strength did not exist only inside individual bodies. It existed in relationships. One injured hunter might still remember migration routes, animal behavior, tool-making techniques, old water sources, and dangerous places. A person unable to chase prey could prepare materials, maintain fire, process food, watch children, or teach younger members. Protecting an injured person involved cost, but abandoning knowledge and social trust also created cost. Each member knew that tomorrow's injury could happen to anyone. A group willing to support weakness may have encouraged cooperation before the accident ever occurred. People could take risks, share resources, and defend others because membership did not disappear at the first sign of vulnerability. This does not mean every Neanderthal was compassionate or that nobody was ever abandoned. Their groups experienced conflict, hunger, violence, and impossible decisions. Care was probably influenced by circumstances, relationships, available food, and the severity of the injury. But the stereotype of a permanently brutal creature concerned only with personal survival cannot explain all the evidence. Neanderthals combined physical adaptation, technical knowledge, memory, planning, and cooperation. So why did they disappear while Homo sapiens remained? The honest answer is that there may not have been one single cause. Climate instability changed habitats and resources. Small, separated populations were vulnerable to local disasters and declining birth rates. Modern humans introduced new competition and social networks. The two populations also met and had children, meaning part of the Neanderthal population was not simply destroyed but absorbed. Their disappearance does not prove that every ability they possessed was inferior. Evolution does not award a permanent trophy to the strongest or most intelligent species. Survival depends on population size, environment, disease, reproduction, cooperation, chance, and the ability to respond when conditions change. Return now to the Ice Age Valley. Darkness is approaching. The modern visitor knows that the Earth moves around the sun, that infection is caused by microorganisms, and that fire is a chemical reaction. The Neanderthal hunter may understand none of those explanations, but he knows where the group can shelter before the storm. He recognizes the stone that will produce a sharp edge. He notices tracks you walked past. He knows which branches contain dry wood beneath their wet surface. He knows how far the group can travel before a child becomes exhausted. He remembers where another hunter nearly died during the previous winter. In this place, at this moment, his knowledge is more useful. That does not make him universally smarter. It demonstrates that intelligence cannot be separated from the problems it was developed to solve. Modern humans have sent machines beyond the solar system and connected billions of people through invisible signals. Neanderthals never created anything comparable. But if most of us were dropped into their world without our civilization, our scientific knowledge would not instantly produce shelter, food, fire, or cooperation. We would need someone to teach us. The person once dismissed as a primitive caveman might become our only chance of surviving the night. Neanderthals endured because their bodies were suited to demanding environments. Their tools stored generations of practical knowledge, and their groups could turn individual experience into collective survival. Their greatest advantage was not one enormous brain, one perfect weapon, or one superhuman body. It was the combination of adaptation, memory, skill, and social support. We were wrong to imagine them as failed versions of ourselves. They were another form of humanity, intelligent in the ways their world demanded. And the most uncomfortable lesson is not that Neanderthals were smarter than us. It is that without the civilization surrounding us, many of us would not know how to survive in the world they called home.